And so, good morning again. I am Reverend Elisha Christopher, Spiritual Director here at Center for Spiritual Living Santa Cruz. My preferred pronouns are they, them, and my ancestors on my father's side come from Scotland and Ireland, and actually found out that my grandmother's grandmother immigrated from French Canada and spoke French and worked in a shoe factory when she first moved to the United States. And on my mother's side, we are Austrian and Dutch, and that side of the family is Jewish. So a little rundown on my history, there you go. Let's begin by taking a few breaths together. So if you will, exhale first. Take a deep breath in. And let go. Another deep breath. And let go. One more of those. Deep breath in. And let go. And so, as you may or may not know, over the course of the month of February, our theme for the month has been Use and Value Diversity. And this fits into our year of inner and outer permaculture as the second of the permaculture principles that we're exploring. And over the course of the last 2 weeks, we've spent a lot of time looking at some hidden histories, if you will. We had our guest, Tracy Brown, last week, who talked to us a little bit about the Black history of New Thought and the hidden legacy, as she calls it, of the voices and contributions of Black folk to the New Thought movement. And the week before that, we heard a little bit from Amy Chen about some of the local history of Chinese culture in this area, and we learned a little bit about Chinese New Year. And this is just two little slices that we've been able to look at to begin to educate ourselves, to uncover some of that which perhaps was unseen by some of us. And as we talk about using and valuing diversity in community, but also in our own lives, I think it's incredibly important for us to think about this idea, as Tracy Brown put it, of the hidden legacy that each person is carrying. You know, one of the reasons we've been using this process of on the stage introducing our name, our pronouns, and our ancestry is because there's a hidden legacy, there's a hidden truth, there's a hidden self inside of each one of us. And if we can begin in this small way to just build a little culture where each one of us begins to introduce some of the layers of who we are, it begins to inform those around us that there's something more to me than you can see, right? And in the room, in our introductions this morning, we asked everyone, just share with someone else something about you that they couldn't know just by looking at you, right? Because if we truly want to live in a stained glass spirit community, which was Tracy's term we used last week, where we recognize that like the stained glass windows we have in this space, each panel, each different color, each unique shape contributes to the whole image. And the image is beautiful because it contains the diversity of colors and shapes. If you look to nature, to forests, to ecosystems, again, they thrive through the interdependence of all of the varying species that are there. And in this idea of talking about hidden histories and hidden legacies this month, it's been making me think a lot about how the unseen is really what is creating most of what we experience, each individually and collectively. You know, the more I learn about permaculture and sustainable agriculture or regenerative agriculture, one of the things that one of the permaculture teachers that I've been studying says is that one of the most important things to look at in your ecosystem is what's happening underground. What's happening in the microbiology of the soil, the fungi, the bacteria, the amoebas, what's happening down in the roots, what's happening underneath the surface means everything to what arrives above the surface, to what grows, to how much fruit and health there is to the plants that grow in that space. And in community, all we can see are the parts of each other that we can see. And yet there is vast worlds inside of each person, and those worlds are informed by our histories, by our ancestral history, but also by our personal history. Those worlds are informed by our identities and by the relationships we've had in the world, perhaps by the area of the world that we grew up in or the things that we had access to or didn't. All of these layers show up in the what that we are creating. And we are living in, as we all are experiencing, the most interesting of times. And it's easier and easier to either look at the world and see that it's becoming more and more and more divided, and it's also getting easier and easier and easier for us to find ourselves in the echo chamber, especially through social media and the internet, of only hearing our own voice back to us. And we have to figure out how to navigate this emerging world. Right? If we ever want to arrive at a world that works for everyone, if any one of us want to figure out how to have thriving lives, we have to recognize that it comes through mutual connection, through interdependence, and through a cultivation of something that we can't see. Just like in your garden, your compost, your worm bin, there's a whole lot happening that you can't see that leads to the flourishing down the line, that leads to the flourishing that you can see. And one of the reasons we're taking the time this month to sort of scratch the surface on some things that perhaps we didn't see before, some histories, some awareness, is because it's the things that we don't pay attention to are creating just as much as the things that we are paying attention to. And that if we're not aware of some of the hidden histories that are right around us, or maybe even sitting in this room, we operate in a way, I think many of us, that it's hard to believe that other people don't think like we do. You know, whatever you think is normal for you, you probably think accidentally might be normal for everyone else. Right? And yet, even in this room, there is a vast diversity of experiences happening right now. We all learn in different ways. We take in information in different ways. Some of us are focused on some of the major issues of the world and saying, how do we solve climate change? How do we fix the divides in the environment? How do we build a beloved community and drop deeper? But some of us are just trying to figure out how to manage our health or our finances or get out of some difficult experience. And so just in this room, there's a variety of experiences happening, and all of that collective is creating for all of us and each of us. And if we walk into this space or any space in the world and think that everyone thinks like we do and expect everyone to want to show up and act and interact and be as outgoing or not outgoing as we are, we actually start creating walls around ourselves. And, you know, we live in the middle of the Live Oak neighborhood of Santa Cruz. And Maggie Dreyer actually introduced me to a neighbor of hers this week who's part of an organization that is the Live Oak Education Foundation. And perhaps you've seen some local bumper stickers on some of the cars that say, "I love Live Oak." And part of this organization's purpose, at least is my understanding, is to recognize that right here in our neighborhood, in the streets that surround this center, there is a vast diversity of hidden histories, of people that we may not even know are there. And that Live Oak is actually one of the more diverse areas of Santa Cruz. I think it's like 50% Hispanic in the neighborhoods right around us, right? And that means that potentially some of the people who are living right around us might be some of the farm workers who are preparing our food. There might be people right in our direct neighborhoods who are asylum seekers, who are here from another place, seeking a life that works. Are we aware of those that might be invisible to us, whose lives we are actually intertwined with, interdependent, connected to? And it's really, really easy to just drive up, come into this building, and only see inside of these walls, right? And yet, there's parks and schools and neighbors and all the things that are happening around us. And so that's just one example of one of the organizations that we are in communication with about saying, how do we take our spiritual principles, our vision of a world that works for everyone, and expand it not just beyond these four walls, not just beyond our acre of property, but out into our neighborhood. Exactly, to the streets. Right? One of the things we've been talking about for a while now, and is really part of this whole year's theme of inner and outer permaculture, is how do we bridge the gap between our principles, our values, and our actions? How do we truly walk the talk? And the thing that I've been contemplating a lot recently is that, we say in our mission, vision, and purpose that we are here in this place to provide spiritual tools for personal and global transformation, right? We're here to awaken humanity to its spiritual magnificence, all for the purpose of bringing about a world that works for everyone. And that takes a lot of doing as well as a lot of being. Right? That we have to be in the practice, we have to be in the engagement. And as I said before, there's a vast diversity of experiences happening right in this very community, in this room. And so if you've noticed, if you pay attention to your newsletter, we're trying to create more and more and more ways that we can come together and be in community with each other. There's something happening almost every day of the week here at this center that you can participate in. And it's because some of us learn by sitting around in a reading group and having a conversation. Some of us learn by getting together and being in movement and creation together. Some of us learn by ... etc., and so on and so forth, right? But we can come into this place and listen to one perspective that's coming from the stage, and that's useful, it's important. I have a lot of good things to say. But you can't get the whole truth from any one perspective, right? Ken Wilber, who created integral theory, says that as he was developing integral theory and studying different philosophies and different teachers and different modalities, he had to do this sort of synthesis process of saying, okay, this and this align, this and this align. What this person said is interesting, but there's some truth there. Let's bring that over here. And he says it wasn't a process of what does Ken Wilber like and what does Ken Wilber not like and sifting them that way. It's a process of recognizing that no human mind is capable of 100% error. Yes. No one. That took you a second, huh? But to me, that also means that the inverse is true. That no human mind is capable of 100% accuracy. That we're all a little on and we're all a little off. You know? And we're living in this interesting time where more and more and more the culture is telling us that my people think correctly and those people think 100% incorrectly. And I was having this thought the other day as I was watching some things on the news. And it appears more and more that we have less and less of, say, liberals and conservatives or Republicans and Democrats, and we have more and more anti-liberals and anti-conservatives, anti-Republicans and anti-Democrats, which is a fascinating turn that's emerging in our collective consciousness, that we are getting so locked into our own perspective that anyone else who comes at us with a different idea, it's like, nope, that doesn't fit my worldview, I don't accept it. And if we are ever going to arrive to the land of solutions, we have to be willing to bridge the gap somehow. You know, my teacher, Gene Houston, for the last 10 years has been telling me the greatest challenge of the 21st century is going to bridge the great divide of otherness. Otherness. That the greatest challenge in front of us is to bridge the great divide of otherness. And if we ever want to arrive at a permaculture design for thriving, a permanent culture that allows us all to live and be as we are meant to be, we're going to have a lot of conversations. You know, one of my favorite books is The Fifth Sacred Thing by Starhawk, and recently she wrote the sequel, The City of Refuge. And in that book, one of the characters is talking about the transformation of this building society and making it all work and arriving at this world that works for everyone that they built in this story. And she says, one of the things that they never tell you is how many meetings it took. How many conversations have to be had, right? And we can only have these conversations in smaller groups. We need to have spaces where we can come together and cycle around ideas with a few other people to bounce our ideas off of, because again, each one of us has our perspective, but it's when we get into dialogue or conversation with another person or a small group of people that these varying perspectives are all start to shine, or it's like we're all standing in a dark room and each one of us has a flashlight. And this is my perspective and this is yours, and there's like, a disco ball in the middle of the room, and we're all trying to shine our light on it to see what is there. And as we shine our light, more and more and more light emerges, right? And I really believe that the remarkable thing about the world that we're living in, as all of the problems and breakdown and disillusion and all the stuff that's happening in the world, right alongside it, underneath it, inside of it, next to it, all around it, the solutions, the possibilities, the ways, the pathways, the people, the minds that are going to lead us there are rising up as well. And I believe that I see that we're standing in this moment where there is this puzzle that has been thrown out before us. No one on the planet has the picture on the box, and every one of us has a piece of the puzzle. Right? And it's in putting all of those pieces of the puzzle together that we're going to start to see the picture that's emerging, but we can't see it yet. We can see that the puzzle's broken. We can see that the pieces are scattered everywhere. We can see that there's a lot that we need to pay attention to. And it's only in sitting around and coming together in community and saying, this is my passion. This is the problem that I see in the world. This is the solution that I see that can lead us there. And then the next person says, well, this is what I see, and this is what I have. And as we come together and bring our multiple perspectives together, the picture can begin to emerge of how we can actually build this world that works, build a community that works, build a space that we can all find a way to plug in, to activate and bring our message forward. Because I know that there's a message, there's a passion, there's a truth, there's a solution in each person in this room. We have the synthesis class that's starting in March. And part of the purpose of the synthesis work is to invite each of us to just bring one passion, one concern, one issue, one thing forward that you want to dedicate your life to seeing shift. And if we had a community where each one of us chose our one thing that we were going to be the champion for, that we were going to be the change agent, the peacemaker, the shift bringer, if we could each choose one thing, there would be 30 or 40 something things shifting today. And some of us we each see certain different things, right? Each one of us comes from our own perspective. And so some of us, the environment is the first concern. For some of us, it's issues of race and social justice. For some of us, it's our local politics. Whatever it is, right? Each one of us can see the thing that is needing to be addressed, and then it's our charge then to bring it forward. Because if you see it, someone else probably does too. But if you see it, it probably means that someone else doesn't as well. And so we have to speak into what it is that we see, so that we can change it. Because again, if we're not paying attention to what we can't see, We can't ever bring the thriving that wants to be here forward. But it takes cultivation. It takes time. It takes participation and deep attention to what we want to bring about. And I think that we are living in one of these crux moments of evolution where the choice is in our hands. There is a momentum happening in the world that is clearly leading us down a road that I don't want to go down. And we can continue to allow that, or we can each make it our spiritual imperative to figure out where our voice is needed and begin to stand up. And so I just want to invite us today to begin to think each individually about what is your piece of the puzzle? What is it that if you could make change in your own life or in the world would contribute to the emergence of this world that works that we're always talking about? But I think that it's going to take every single one of us naming our one thing and starting there. Not ending there, but starting there. You know, the journey of 1,000 steps begins with the first one. And I believe that if we can see one small thing change in our own life or in our community, it's a whole lot easier to believe that we can make change into something a little bit bigger. And if we can do something in our community or in a small group, then it's maybe a little bit easier to believe that we could do it on a greater scale in our greater community, in our state, or in our nation. And so do some self-examination, some life examination this week, and just notice what has your attention. And then when you begin to notice, begin to ask, what is mine to do? And so take a deep breath and let it go. And I just want to invite us to just take a moment to breathe. To just be in this contemplation. That right here in this room, each one of us is being called towards something. And to just ask, what might that be? And how can I make a step forward? And so let us just know together that there is only one. That in the multiplicity of life, in the vast diversity that surrounds us, in all that appears to be wrong and broken and falling apart, there's only one planet. There's only one life, and it holds us all. Because we are truly in this together. Every single one of us and every single one of them. There is no divide. We are one people. We are one planet. We are life itself. And so it is up to us to be the place where something new emerges, where we take a stand or we speak our voice, where we use the power of our word to speak a new vibration into the world, knowing that every word spoken is a prayer uttered, and that every prayer uttered, the answer is always yes. And so let us believe in something higher. Let us participate in something bigger. Recognize that the world is calling for something new. And the seeds of that newness live inside of each one of us. But we must value the difference of opinion and perspective and the overlap of consciousness, always remembering that when two or more are gathered, something more becomes available. And so let us gather around possibility. Let us gather around change. Let us gather around being spiritually active people in the world, taking what we think about and what we know about and what we meditate and pray about and bring it into the world, into how we be and come about everywhere we go. And so I am just grateful to be able to know that change is in my hands. Let us each be grateful that we are not powerless, that we are sourced by a power for good in this universe that is greater than we are, and each one of us can be a place where it comes through into the world, unleashing greater good and possibility everywhere we go. Let us stand for good. Let us each learn to live in a good way, and then be the living examples to everyone we meet. And so in this, I just say yes, and I surrender. And so it is. Michael?